I still remember the feeling of bringing my son, Leo, home from the hospital. Our small house was filled with laughter, the smell of baked goods, and bouquets of flowers sent by friends. Being a first-time mother, I was both excited and scared. But my husband was always by my side, a kind, patient man who stayed up all night to change diapers, learn how to bathe the baby, and held me when I cried from exhaustion. My mother-in-law, Patricia, moved in from out of state about 2 weeks after the baby was born. Honestly, I didn't object. She'd lost her husband years ago, and her son meant everything to her. I figured she wanted to be close to her grandchild, and I needed someone to help with the initial uncertainty. So when my husband suggested bringing her in for a while, I agreed, though I was a little nervous. In the early days, everything went smoothly. She cooked, helped with the laundry, and even volunteered to babysit, so I could catch up on a few hours of sleep in the afternoon. I was truly grateful to her. There were evenings when the three of us sat watching TV, and she told me stories about raising my husband, and I laughed as I imagined him as a tiny baby, crying every time he was given a cold shower. But then, the comments started coming. At first they were gentle, like, "In the past, my mother didn't let her son use a noise machine because it made his ears ring." Or, "Why don't you give the baby some water? Poor baby, he's so thirsty that he's crying like that." I smiled, explaining that doctors advise against giving babies water and that white noise is a proven sleep aid. She said nothing more, just sighed. Then one day, I saw her dip a towel in leaf water and wipe the baby's body, even though the baby did not have any rashes. I gently reminded her that baby's skin is very sensitive and that products should be used as directed by a doctor. She pursed her lips and said nothing. My husband always stood in the middle, trying to calm her down. He said, "Mom is used to the old way of raising her. Give her time." I nodded, believing that if I was patient and gentle, things would gradually get better. I was wrong. Everything is just calm before the storm. Little did I know that behind the helpful facade, my mother-in-law was nurturing something very toxic, a possessive love, wanting to turn her grandchild into a mother again, in her own way. And I, the child's biological mother, was slowly being pushed out of my own child's life. I don't know when things started to get out of hand. Maybe it was when my mother-in-law started calling Leo by a nickname she made up herself, Little Timmy. She said, "Leo sounds too modern. I think Timmy is cuter, more suitable for him." I just smiled awkwardly, thinking it was just an old-fashioned nickname. But then, she began to speak about my child instead of my nephew when talking about Leo. "My baby is drinking too little milk today. My child did not sleep well last night. My child was dressed in too thin clothes by his mother. He was cold." Every time I heard that sentence, a strange feeling rose in my heart, as if I had been deprived of my motherhood, as if she were reliving that role through my grandchild. Once, I gently commented, "Mom, you are the child's mother." She just smiled meaningfully. Then mother and child, we are both mothers. There is no difference. Different, very different. She won't let me hold the baby when it cries. As soon as she heard the baby cry, she rushed into the room, snatched the baby from me, and comforted him as if I had hurt him. When I took the baby back and carried him outside for some fresh air, she stood inside the house, shaking her head and closing the door angrily. Not yet. I saw her once secretly put salt in baby food I was prepared. The baby was not yet 6 months old and should not eat salt at all. I was shocked and trembling with anger, but she just calmly replied, "You and your dad used to eat like that and still grew up. Now that you're a mother, you're afraid of everything." I told my husband the story. At first, he thought I was exaggerating because his mother had always been gentle, loving to her children and grandchildren. But when he saw his mother with his own eyes deliberately change the baby's nap schedule, then blamed me for forcing the child to follow the doctor's model, then he began to realize the problem. But Patricia did not stop. She cut baby's hair while I was sleeping, saying, "Take young hair to cool the head." I cried, not because of the hair, but because of the feeling of helplessness, when the child I gave birth to was considered by others as a test doll for old, imposed, and stubborn beliefs. I started to limit how much time she would spend alone with the baby. I locked the room when they were napping. I hid away baby care items that I believed she would reinvent in her own way. I don't want to do that, but I no longer trust her. Every time I spoke, she brought up the past. "I raised her father. Now my daughter-in-law comes home to teach me how to raise children?" No, I don't want to teach anyone. I just want to be a mother of one's own child in your own home. But my mother-in-law, Patricia, wanted to turn me into a nanny, and she is the one who controls everything. I've been patient. I've tried. But then there comes a point where patience has its limits, and that day is coming very soon. The real confrontation began one afternoon early in the week when the pediatrician requested more time, tummy time for baby Leo. My little boy has a mild flat head. The doctor said this is common and can be completely improved by putting him on his stomach a few times a day to strengthen his neck muscles and aid in motor development. I did as instructed, gently, with a soft cushion, with a toy in front of him to keep his attention, and always supervising. Leo didn't cry, just whined a few times like usual, like, "Mommy, I'm so lazy, I don't like this." I smiled, encouraged him, and counted down. "Only 10 more seconds, honey, then I'll hold you." But the sound of heavy footsteps behind me startled me. The door to the room was flung open so hard that it hit the wall. My mother-in-law stormed in. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking as she pointed straight at me. "Stop! You're hurting the boy." I did not have time to react when she snatched baby Leo off the rug, hugged tightly, shouted, "I won't let you torture my grandchild. What tummy time? It's a scam." I was stunned, panicked. It felt like someone was squeezing my chest. I held out my hand, trying to stay calm. "Mom, please give the baby back to me. This is the doctor's instructions, not my own idea. The baby is not crying, he is just practicing, Mom." But she shook her head, eyes wide. I saw it, squeeze. He was lying on his stomach. He couldn't lift his head. That's abuse. I swallowed. My heart pounded. I saw the hysterical in her eyes, no longer a grandmother to worry about, but an accuser. That night, I told my husband. He was silent for a long time, then sighed. "I think Mom is losing control, but I'll talk to her." I nodded, trying to hold on to hope, but the next day, everything went downhill. This time, no tummy time. I was sitting on the sofa. Little Leo was lying on my chest, playing happily. But just because he whined a few times, like he always did when he was bored, my mother-in-law rushed in again as if electrified. She screamed, "Again? What are you doing to him?" I held my son tightly, not answering. Instead, I stood up, walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and locked. Immediately after that were the loud banging. "Open up! I'm calling the police. You have no right to lock me up like that while my child is being abused." And she actually called. I called my husband, my voice shaking. He was working nearly 30 minutes away, but he dropped everything and rushed home. And I stood there, holding my baby, my hands shaking. It was all too much. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could take it. I never thought I would be standing in my living room, holding my baby and shaking, with 2 police officers knocking on the door because accused of abusing his own child. When they knocked on the door, I was still in shock. They were dressed formally. Their eyes were serious. I opened the door, took a deep breath, and said bluntly, "Please come in." I don't know what my mother-in-law said, but I'm willing to cooperate. One of the 2 men, a tall man, probably in his 40s, said softly, "We just came to check on a call about suspected child abuse. Nothing official, don't panic." I invited them in, showed them around the house. Everything was clean and tidy. I spent the morning cleaning every corner because my instincts told me that she is trying to paint a bad picture of me. They looked around, nodded, and didn't say much. Little Leo was dozing in my arms, his face rosy, his hands clinging to my shirt, a very peaceful image. Then they asked, "Can you tell me what happened?" I tried to keep my voice calm and told everything clearly. From my mother-in-law's objection to the doctor's recommended method of raising the baby, to the time she rushed in and snatched the baby from me during tummy time. And finally, when she accused me just because the baby whined a few times while playing. I am not exaggerating, nor am I defaming her. I am simply recounting, honestly, in detail, to pain choked in the throat. A policeman nodded, looked at his colleague and said, "We see this a lot, new parents and grandparents clashing over parenting. But your home is clean, your baby is healthy, and she seems to be bonded well with her mother. There are no signs of abuse." I burst into tears, not because of the accusations, but because I was too tired. My mother-in-law stood there, still the familiar Patricia, but with cold eyes and arms crossed over her chest, and began to tell her story. She puts my baby where the cat sleeps. The dog licks his face. The baby bottle and the aspirator are in the same corner. She leaves the machine on all the time and it gives him headaches. She hurts my baby. The policeman, the younger one, looked at her, trying not to laugh. He said, "Ms. Patricia, we are not doctors, but from what we have observed, this is just a difference in parenting views, not a criminal act." I couldn't laugh with them. I just felt broken. After a few minutes, they politely stood up. "We won't make any records. There's no sign of danger. Perhaps you should let your son and daughter-in-law raise the child as they see fit. Otherwise, it's easy to get confused." My husband arrived just as they were about to leave. He looked at me, his face still filled with panic, then at the police, then back at his mother. "What did you do, Mom?" My mother-in-law still tried to deny. "I just want my grandchild to be safe. That girl doesn't know how to take care of her child. I can't just stand by and watch." He said nothing, didn't shout, didn't argue, just looked straight into her eyes, coldly. "I need to leave this house." For the first time since Leo's birth, I feel really protected. But at the same time, I also know this. There is no turning back. My mother-in-law was stunned. She was about to say something, but my husband interrupted. "You have a few hours to pack. Tonight, my wife and I will take you to a hotel. Tomorrow morning, you fly back to your state. We will take care of all expenses." I had never seen her eyes like that, not angry, but shock of no power for the first time, and I, even though I had just been vindicated, felt empty. I thought I would feel relieved, but no, just sad. A deep sadness, because of family relationships died in silence, but no one would bury it properly. That night, I slept with Leo in my room, the door locked. I didn't want to see Patricia or hear another word from her. After what she had done, taking my son away from me, falsely accusing me to the police, and then trying to justify herself by saying she just wanted the best for him. I didn't have the energy to reason or be patient. My husband was the one who spoke to her next. I didn't hear the rest, but I knew he had chosen to stand by this little family, and that was the first time I'd seen him draw a clear line between the mother he loves and the mother who is destroying his wife and children. He knocked on the door and asked me gently, "Do you want to take your mother to the hotel?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no. I didn't want to face her again. But then I thought, if I didn't do this, she would go back to being the abandoned daughter-in-law victim. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, witness this ending. Don't let her rewrite the story. So I agree. Around 9 p.m., I parked my car in front of the house. It was raining lightly. The cold wind seemed to penetrate my skin, but it was still not as cold as the cold in my heart. She walked out, dragging her heavy plastic suitcase, still with her usual arrogant demeanor. There was no apology, no look of guilt, just a reproachful look, as if we had betrayed her after all the sacrifices she had made. I opened the trunk and helped her put her things in. She sat in the back seat, silent the whole way. I should have felt elated, but really, I just felt empty. We came to one small motel near the highway where I had booked a room. She took her suitcase. I gave her my room key and a bag. Inside were a few bottles of water, snacks, and a box of frozen taquitos. The same kind she bought but said it was bad, then told me to eat it so it doesn't waste money. A little petty at last, I admit, but after all she's done, I don't feel guilty. She looked at the bag, then turned to me. "I'm not really going to call Child Protective Services. I just want you to know what you're doing wrong." I looked at her for a long time. Then I said, my voice hoarse, "You don't understand. Calling the police is one thing, but threatening to call CPS, that's crossing the line. You're no longer someone I can trust around my child." She smiled faintly, but said nothing more. I turned and walked away. As I closed the car door, my phone vibrated. Message from father-in-law. "You can't let my wife sleep in a hotel alone. I demand that you take her home and solve the problem like a family. If anything happens to her, I will blame you." I was speechless. My husband also received the same message. When I told him, he coldly said, "I blocked Dad." "You should have. The two of them aren't family anymore." I nodded, not objecting. Although there were still hundreds of mixed emotions in my heart, there was one thing I was certain of. Family is where my child is safe. And those who are willing to fabricate, slander, manipulate, do not deserve to be in that circle. The next morning, I went back to the motel to pay her the extra room fee. Hotels don't take cash payments. I also brought her some extra cookies and fruit. Not because I'd changed, just because I don't want someone like you to be the reason I lose my kind nature. Before leaving, I said, "You have a flight at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Tickets are booked. If you need anything else, you can text, but not until you board the plane." She looked at me. Her eyes were no longer as arrogant as before, but there was still no apology. I stepped out to the car. The wind blew harder again. "I know clearly this won't be the last time you try to come back, but it will be the last time I give you the chance to hurt my family again." I thought that after getting Patricia out of the house, things would gradually get back on track. But I was wrong. Just an hour after I got home from the hotel, my phone started ringing nonstop. Text messages, missed calls, even emails. All from my father-in-law, Mr. Harold, the person who has always been cold and taciturn since I became a daughter-in-law. I figured he wouldn't let it go, but I didn't expect to get a message like this. I'm telling you for the last time, take my wife home immediately. If anything happens to her, I'll sue you for elder abuse. Don't think this is over. I was stunned, not from fear, but from, it feels like the whole world is spinning upside down. My mother-in-law slandered me and called the police. Now, it's my father-in-law's turn to threaten to sue as if my husband and I were criminals. I intended to reply mildly, but as soon as I texted the first line, I understand your concern, but Mrs. Patricia has, then the next message came immediately, not giving me time to say anything. You're not geniuses or doctors. Parents need to listen. No one teaches their children to lie face down. She's the one who needs psychiatric treatment. He meant me. I looked at my husband. He was sitting on the sofa, his face drained of color. I handed him the phone. He read it through, then was silent. A long time. Then he said softly, almost in a whisper, I blocked Dad. I made up my mind the moment Mom was taken away. I didn't answer, just looked at him, waiting for something. And then he told me, you never told me about your childhood. I nodded. In my mind, the puzzle began to fit together. When I was little, every time my dad got mad at my mom, he would grab her hair, slam her on the floor, or smash dishes. I got beaten up a few times for daring to intervene. I took his hand. For the first time, I felt his strong man trembled like a child. You know what disgusts me the most? My mother never intervened, never protected me. She just cried, then apologized to my father, then defended him. Every time. I couldn't breathe. My whole body was cold. It was a truth that no apology can wash away. And now, when my mother says that putting the baby on his stomach is abuse, like Dad did to us, I just want to explode. She compares therapy to abuse. During my childhood, no one ever treated me. At that moment, I didn't cry. I had no more tears. I see. The love that my mother-in-law imposed on her child is not actually love, but need for control, the need to play the victim, to continue avoiding old sins. She used to silence when son is beaten. She used to defend the abuser. And now she's turned to anti-violence hero by condemning the daughter-in-law who was trying to protect her child. I was disgusted, not because she was old, grumpy, or old-fashioned, but because she never acknowledged your actions in the mirror. My husband concluded, I think it's not that Mom doesn't know she's wrong. It's that she cannot tolerate that others, especially other women, do a better job of mothering than she does. That night, I deleted all messages from my father-in-law, blocked both of them on my phone, Facebook, and anywhere else I could contact them. I looked at Leo sleeping soundly, his face innocent and peaceful, and said to myself, I'd rather be hated by the whole world than let my child grow up among people who are good at using family love to oppress others. I am no longer the obedient daughter-in-law like before. I am the mother, and this time, I will not be silent. I arrived at the hotel earlier than expected. My mother-in-law was standing at the gate, her small suitcase out, her face stiff. I didn't expect a greeting or a look of gratitude. I just wanted this to be over. The early morning sky was hazy, the clouds hanging low as if they were also heavy. I got out of the car, opened the trunk, and said nothing. She carried her things into the back seat, then sat in the front seat next to me. It was quiet, cold, but also strangely relieved. I drove straight to the airport, no radio, no music. The air in the car was thick with a stifling feeling, not because of sadness, but because none of us have said everything we need to say. Approaching the departure gate, I took the initiative to speak. "Are you going to apologize?" She turned to look at me, her eyes blank. "Sorry? For what?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The answer didn't shock me. I expected it, but hearing it from her mouth still made my heart ache. For calling the police, for threatening to call Child Protective Services, for using my son as a tool to get your second chance at motherhood, for slandering me and hurting your own son. She pursed her lips. Then, smile. I just did what I thought was right. If she had been raised properly, she wouldn't be whining and lying face down on the ground all day. And my son? You made him weak and dependent. He used to be a strong boy. I raised my head, looked at her straight in the face, my voice slow but cold. No, you are wrong. Your son was once a boy, beaten, ignored, and abandoned in the house where she ignored every cry. So today, it was he who chased her away, because he no longer a silent child. She opened her mouth to argue, but I interrupted, for once not letting her get the better of her. I know about my father-in-law, about how he used to beat you, beat the kids, and I know you didn't protect him. You kept your head down, and then you blamed everything else, like you're doing with me and Leo now. But the difference is, I won't be silent like you were. The car fell silent. No more arguing, no more making excuses, no more pretending. I parked outside the drop-off area. I opened the trunk. She opened the door and pulled out her suitcase without another word. I watched her walk away, back straight, neck tall, but shoulders shaking. Then she stopped and tapped the window. I almost didn't want to stop, but then I rolled it down. She signaled that I still had a small bag of stuff left in the back seat. I gave it to her, and then, in the clearest voice I had ever heard, I said, "From today, you are no longer a part of my life or my son's. If you come near my house again, I will call the police, for real this time." She stood there, eyes wide, saying nothing, and I didn't wait for her to react. I rolled down the window and stepped on the gas. When I looked in the rearview mirror, she was still standing there, in the middle of the shuttle lane, small and lost. And I, for the first time in months, feel no guilt. That evening, I did not go into the kitchen as usual. My husband ordered Chinese food. I sat on the living room floor. Leo lay on his back on my lap, waving his arms, giggling. I held my child in my arms and promised myself, Mommy may not be perfect, but she will be the safest place in your life. She will protect you, even from the people who say they love you the most. I thought after my mother-in-law left, everything would go back to normal, but I underestimated consequences of a toxic storm. 2 days after seeing her off at the airport, I started getting messages from a few of my husband's relatives. Not too close, but close enough to interfere, or think they have the right to. A cousin texted, "It's not right to do that to an elderly person. Aunt Patricia just wanted to help." Another aunt emailed, "Uncle Harold told me to learn how to be a good mother instead of chasing old people away and posting online about it." I didn't post anything. I never shared this publicly outside of close friends. But I know someone is telling a distorted version of events, where I was selfish, arbitrary, chasing away the person who used to take care of my grandchildren to live happily alone. I looked at those posts, not feeling angry, but tired. I had many sleepless nights, not because of the baby crying, but because of me keep listening in my head Patricia's voice at the airport. No apology, no remorse. Just a mother convincing herself that her son was taken away, and saddest of all, There are people in her family who truly believe so. My husband tried to shield me as much as possible. He said, "You've been silent for too long. Now they have no right to say anything." He blocked all his relatives from sending him offensive messages and deleted the ambiguous Facebook posts his parents left. But that didn't stop me from feeling hurt. Not because they hate me, but even when I was slandered, they still chose to believe the elders just because of the title of parent. I started seeing some of my friends again, young mothers I knew from childbirth class. One of them, Hannah, had watched her mother-in-law fight over naming her baby and eventually custody after the divorce. Hannah said, "It took me a year of therapy to understand that cutting off isn't betrayal, it's survival." That sentence followed me all the way to my bedroom. Lying next to my child, I remembered the times I pursed my lips, pretended to smile, and apologized unconsciously just to please my mother-in-law. Now that I think about it, I feel like I was too lenient. I should have reacted more strongly. I should have kicked her out of the house the first time she snatched the child from my arms. But instead, I waited. I hoped. I believed that if I was patient enough, I could avoid conflict. Now I understand. Silence in the face of toxicity is digging your own grave. Gradually, I began to find myself again. I resumed my journaling habit, not on paper, but through short recordings while Leo slept. I recounted my experiences, my feelings, and the things I wished I had told her. I also do yoga every morning, just 15 minutes, but it's the only time I can breathe, really breathe, without feeling weighed down by someone's eyes questioning my parenting. The neighbors helped more than I thought they would. Ellen, the widow who lived next door, brought over a pot of chicken soup and said, "Little girl, I see your son smiling all the time. That is the sign of a child who is loved properly. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." I burst into tears right there on the steps. Not because of the soup, but because in the end, someone also said what I longed to hear from my own mother-in-law. I no longer think about reconciliation. I no longer envision a reunion evening where Patricia holds Leo and I smile forgivingly. That door was closed, and I was the one who locked it. And I know there are people who will call me cruel. They will say, children should be filial, or old people should forget everything they say. But to me, being a mother is not an excuse to take away the motherhood of others. And old age does not excuse toxic behavior. If the price I pay to protect my child, if I am shunned by relatives and talked behind my back, then I accept it. Because from now on, I'm not anyone's daughter-in-law anymore. I'm just Leo's mother. About a month after my mother-in-law left, things started calm down. No more text messages from relatives. No more threatening emails from my father-in-law. No more surprise knocks or furtive phone calls. Every day I wake up, make coffee in the quiet kitchen, pick up Leo to blow bubbles, and think, maybe this is peace. But as it turns out, peace is temporary, especially when the other party still thinks he can come back through another door. One early autumn morning, my husband received a wedding invitation from my brother Evan, who is getting married next month. A formal, embossed, heavyweight invitation. But the special thing isn't the design. It's the person sending the card is not the bride or groom, but is my husband's parents. I remember clearly my husband's face when he opened the envelope. It was both stiff and hazy. Inside was a cream-colored card with both names, location, time, and a handwritten note at the bottom. We should be together as a family. We are blood relatives. Let's put aside our differences and come and bring Leo. Mom wants to see you. I finished reading. My heart does not beat fast, but beats slowly, as if suffocating. My husband was silent, his hand gently crumpling the corner of the card. I sat opposite him and asked, "What do you think?" He sighed, "I want to see my brother. But if you're not comfortable, I won't go." I look at him, and I know it's no longer a matter of comfortable or not. This is the final test. It's a sugar-coated trap, because if I don't go, I'll be labeled a family terror again. But if I go, I'll have to stand in the middle of a room full of judgmental eyes, in front of the person who called me an abuser, and pretend like nothing ever happened. That night, I thought for a long time. I watched Leo sleep, his hand gripping my finger like an automatic reflex, and I realized I don't need that wedding, but my child needs to see his mother strong and not compromise with the wrong thing. So I decided to write a letter, straight to Leo's grandparents' house. "Dear Harold and Patricia, I received the wedding invitation. I believe the ceremony will be beautiful and meaningful. But I cannot go, not because I am angry, nor because I want to break up, but because I cannot stand in the middle of a crowd pretending to be happy when I am still scared in heart caused by two people, called the police to the house of a daughter who had just given birth, threatened to call CPS, slandered, silenced when asked to apologize, and now invited to a wedding as if nothing had happened? I don't live a fake life, and I don't teach my children to live that way. If one day the two of us can admit mistakes without blaming age, experience, or good intentions, then I will listen. But if you two continue to use blood relations as an excuse to shirk responsibility, then I will not participate. Wishing Evan and his wife a happy wedding. The daughter-in-law that the two of them chose to abandon." My husband read the letter and nodded. He didn't send the email. He printed it out, put it in an envelope, and put it in your parents' mailbox yourself. And he decided he would not attend wedding. You can't call people who have never stood by you family. I don't need compliments, but hearing you say that makes me feel better. We didn't have a big wedding, no family photos on the wall, no grandparents buying presents for the grandchildren. But we did have kindness, honesty, and each other. No one has to pretend. That evening, I told Leo a story, not a fairy tale, but a story from his mother. A story about courage, not to conquer anyone, but to stand firm in the face of isolation. About a mother who was once afraid of being hated, afraid of being gossiped about, but then realized that love does not need anyone's approval. And I love my child, unconditionally, without compromise, without fear of offending anyone. There is something that few people say out loud. That decisiveness, even when correct, always leaves gaps. I no longer receive sarcastic messages from relatives. No longer have to keep calm every time I step out of the room and see my mother-in-law holding my child with a possessive look. No longer feel choked up every time someone asks, "Does Leo look like his grandmother?" But I also don't have a grandmother to show me the first pictures of my baby rolling over, no one to knit a sweater or cook sweet soup for a depressed mother. Those gaps still exist. But now I know not every void needs to be filled, especially when the thing being filled is just pretense. 3 months after Patricia left, my husband and I took Leo to the beach. For the first time, without the grandparents, without anyone to take pictures, just the three of us, a blanket, and a timer. Leo touched the sand for the first time and cried. But within minutes, he was happily tossing the sand around like he was discovering a new planet. I smile, not because of the beautiful moment, but because I was here, Now, completely myself. No fear, no pretense, no role playing. I'm back at work, not my old job at the marketing firm, but my new job, blogging about motherhood, recovery from toxicity, and setting boundaries. I wrote about the police coming to the house, about the first meal after kicking out my mother-in-law, about the first night no one took the baby from me, about the silence from some people and the tight hugs from others. Not to complain, but to tell, to understand, and to pass on to other mothers, those who are also struggling to live between expectations and prejudices. My husband, who used to be reserved about his parents, now occasionally talks about his childhood, no longer avoiding it. One night he sat up in the middle of the night, stroking Leo's hair, and whispered, "I swear I will never let my child go through what I went through." I sat beside him, saying nothing, just holding his hand. A new family had been created, not of blood, but of committing not to repeat old mistakes. We received an invitation to the first birthday party of my paternal cousin's child. This time, there was no extra note, no pressure, but no apology either. I put the letter down, didn't reply, and I understood more clearly than ever. Forgiveness isn't always reconciliation. Sometimes forgiveness is just not letting the past hurt the present anymore. I ended my first year of motherhood not with an elaborate birthday party for Leo, but with a photo. The three of us sitting on the terrace, eating homemade cake, the late afternoon sun on our cheeks. In that photo, I smiled, not forced, not tired. My husband took that photo. He wrote the caption on his personal Instagram. We lost a few people, but in return, we kept each other. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day, my mother-in-law will call again. Maybe there will be an apology, or not. Maybe there will be an invitation to a funeral or a wedding. But whatever happens, I will never trade the peace I have won back, with tears, with blood, and with courage, just to be called a good daughter-in-law or good daughter. I used to be afraid of being disliked. Not anymore. I used to be afraid of being misunderstood. Now I understand that not everyone deserves to be understood. I used to want to keep a complete family. Now I understand. Enough is not in the number of people in the photo, but in the feeling when you sit in that frame. I deserve better. And I'm living it, every day, every moment.